When we're saying humans are here on Earth in our third dimension, what it means is not that we're not wise or that we don't have access. It means the speed of which information is coming through is a slower speed. So we are able to see this is a table because the table is moving at a slow speed that it feels physical. So when we're opening up dimension, when we're going higher in dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension, we're opening up that access through which the speed and the frequency of that information is quicker in nature.
Hi everyone, I am Julie Edmonds, your host of Channeled, tapping into the wisdom of your soul. Hello and welcome to Channel Tapping to the Wisdom of Your Soul. And today I am so excited to have the lovely Layla. She's known as Light with Layla. She's a radiant guide and she works with subconscious reprogramming, Vedic astrology natal chart readings, and light language vocal activation. That's exciting. Hi, Layla. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much, Julie, for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, you're super welcome. So let's get started. All right, so let's just start with the natal chart reading. So for someone who doesn't know what that is, how is it? How did you get into it? Like, explain a little bit for us.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk a little bit first about why I even stumbled into this path. And I think it has a lot to do with our upbringing, right? And for me, I was always a very sensitive soul, and I could see auras around people when I was younger. I could pick up on imbalances in people's bodies. And I truly feel that all beings that come onto Earth are born with these extrasensory abilities. And then I think what happens is we get it conditioned out of us. So, through educations, through our religious teachings, right, traditions, even ancestral trauma, right? Things like that get passed down are essentially stamping out what is unique to us. And so I think, unfortunately, that kind of happened to me, but my mom was always a pioneer and she could always see the vision of what something could be. And in many regards, the reason why I'm here talking with you today in the work that I'm doing is because of her. Because she saw something unique in me and she nurtured that. And while she didn't know exactly what it was or exactly what I was feeling, she didn't have the languaging to talk about it. She did what she could. So she brought a Reiki master to our home when I was 9, and she attuned me to Reiki. And she was trying to nurture this extrasensory ability that she could see that I had. And
Well, let me ask you right there, though. How did you respond to that as a 9-year-old having Reiki? Because I sometimes bring that to my kids and they're like, Mom, what are we doing? They think I'm crazy.
I think I always saw it. I was always an avid meditator, even when I was younger. Like they have in my little report cards from kindergarten, during rest time, I wouldn't rest. I would sit crisscross applesauce and close my eyes. And they didn't have a languaging for it, and neither did we. And we were, I grew up in a religious household as well. So I think there was towing the line between what's acceptable and what's not. And I think for me, I always was open to that because I really did trust my mom at the end of the day. And I think where that started to shift was when I was, in my late teens off to college, so 18, 19, where I really wanted to differentiate between who I was and my parents. And so I remember my mom believing in aliens and, all this disclosure information and homeopathy and all this stuff that I was like, she's gone crazy.
That sounds like my mom. She's like, the earth talked to me.
Yes. And, and I really think it was less so a judgment against her, but more so a need to differentiate within me.
Yeah, sure.
And a need to individuate. So, I really was open and receptive. I don't think I was, believing it all the time, but when I was younger, she would, make us do vision boards and vision boxes and, put in our dreams and affirmations and manifestation, all that, stuff, even Abraham Hicks, right? These are all things that she dragged us to, me and my sister as well, to these events, and we would kind of like begrudgingly go. But I remember even watching, Esther Hicks when she would start to channel and feeling this sense of like, wow, that I know it's real.
I wished I had gone and witnessed Esther Hicks back in her day. That would have been great.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It was pretty special. But all
I
that,
love though. I love that your mom supported you and in your feelings and your thoughts and introduced those things. I love that.
yeah, yeah. And more so the fact that, right, like all people, we go through our seasons of life and we need moments where we need more togetherness and where we need that support, and other moments where we need to individuate and differentiate a little bit. And I'm really, really grateful for everything that she's done for me and for my sister, our family. And she really was the reason why I went down this path, because I actually had an awakening of my own when I was 20, and whereby I essentially started channeling beings from.
Oh, this is what I'm excited about. Is this like the light language we're talking? I mean, I am so excited to hear about this.
Yeah, yeah. So this started happening to me. I had taken some time out from college because I believe I was going through a dark night of the soul
Mhm.
experience. My dad was a violent.
Common in the 21, 22-year-old time period for women particularly. I've heard for me for sure.
Yeah, and actually, I think the reason for that is because if we look at astrologically why that happens, and we'll get into
Yeah.
astrology in a minute, but everyone goes through certain planetary time periods around the same ages. So that 20 to 21 age involves the planet called Uranus. And Uranus is a planet that it's kind of like a lightning bolt. It does things differently. It's sparky, it awakens, it electrifies. It doesn't make sense, but it causes this rattling internally.
Well, it doesn't make sense to our logical mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, exactly. And so that's what I was going through when I was 2021. I started channeling these beings from the Andromeda galaxy.
Wait,
And
did you know that though, or how did you find out that? Like,
yeah, I had no idea. I was in a trance state, and I didn't believe my mom when I got out of the state, because she said to me, she said, "Do you remember what just happened?" And I said, "No." And I genuinely thought, because right before I had done that, I went to her because I was feeling a little bit anxious, and she guided me through this meditation. And then all of a sudden I felt like I was out of her bed and I was into this circle of rocks.
okay, wait. So this is through a guided meditation. I was wondering, this wasn't just sitting at Sunday dinner and suddenly you pass the bread and I'm having a channeled experience.
Yeah, no. Um, it was through a guided meditation. And in that guided meditation, I thought I went to bed after that. And I woke up with what felt like several hours later, but it was only about 40 minutes. And I remember feeling after that experience, like everything just, it was like I had new cells. Everything was alive. And I could feel my cells like pulsating in my body. And I'm not a very flexible person, but after that, I was able to lift my knee to my head like
Oh,
that.
no, I believe that. So, wow. We'll talk about that in 2 seconds about how you cleared some energy out of your body because of that. Wow. Okay.
Mm.
I would love to go back to this moment though. So, how, what was happening? Like, what, you know,
So, yeah, so I woke up and I felt like I had a new body. And my mom asked me if I remembered anything. And I said, yeah, you did this guided meditation. I was in this circle of rocks and I went to bed after that. And she said, that's all you remember? And I said, yeah. And she said, you were channeling these beings from the Andromeda galaxy. And this was back in 2017. And she said that these beings said that between the years of 2019 and 2024, that the Earth would go through a shift in consciousness. And and essentially, yeah, and they call them these pockets of consciousness. So the medical institution would begin to get kind of like a revamp, essentially. Everything's reorganizing, the education system, financial system, all these systems would start to crumble, but it's not crumbling so much as it's a reorganizing to match a new vibration.
That's awesome.
And, and I didn't believe her. And she said, well, I recorded it. And she pulled out her recording on her phone. And I began to listen. And what's really crazy about all of this is back to when I was younger, I had this very sensitive ability, but I didn't want to channel it into seeing auras and doing all this stuff because when I was younger, all you want to do is fit in. So what I did instead, yeah, so what I did instead was I started musical theater and I started acting. And I grew up in New York City, so I was surrounded by so many different accents that I would be able to, when I was younger, hear someone speak in a certain way and I'd be able to match that resonance and say it back.
Oh, that's a gift.
And yeah, and it was just being used in more of a third dimensional way, right? Like resonating, hearing something, matching that energy. But this, when I heard it, my voice was like a masculine energy. It was very direct, very loving, but very direct. And it almost sounded like it was on a walkie-talkie. There was this like grainy frequency to my speaking voice.
Now, this is you listening back to your tape, the recording that your mother recorded, said that you didn't remember. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they were using languaging that I didn't know. And by the way, this was around the time where my mom was like, oh, aliens exist and our consciousness and Mother Earth Gaia, and we're here to help her. And I was like, oh my God, what is she doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, totally not believing. And here I was in her bedroom talking about all of these things.
No, and what did it sound like? Can you share with us what it sounds like?
It was like a person speaking, but it was like a masculine energy speaking through me. So it was almost like I can't really redo the voice.
No, no, no. That's of course, obviously, because that was like in that moment. But was there messaging?
Oh yes, it was all in English. And it was basically talking about, like I said, about the time periods that we're walking into.
Okay.
And that essentially what would happen is there would be what they used, the terminology they used was a timeline split. And when they mean a timeline split, what they mean is there will be a certain percentage of people that will raise their consciousness to match this, ascension or whatever you want to call it that's happening on the planet, and another group of people that can't move that energy. They just it's not in their path to. And so people will be living kind of two different lives while they're sharing the same existence on Earth. And that was basically the messaging. The other messaging was that I've had this gift and it's time for me to use it. And and I remember my mom even said, "Oh, but she loves musical theater." Like I was studying it in college at the time. I was studying playwriting and theater. And the guide said, she enjoys it, but let her have it. But that's not really what she's here for.
So this isn't the messaging that you recorded. It was like you were in third person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Fully me, not there.
That is great that Layla, you were able to disconnect from who you are as a human to allow those voices and that transformation. And so now let's move into your body changed.
Yeah, completely. It was like,
Healed?
yeah, super flexible, very light. And they basically, after that, they also said that, like, now that this activation's been made inside of me, I need to meditate more because when we meditate, essentially we're raising our vibration, right? And it'll be easier for me to get these transmissions. And while my human side of me was like, this is weird, what is going on?
Sure.
There was a deeper side of me that was listening to it going, of course I can do this. And it was almost as obvious as saying, I have brown hair.
Yes, no, it feels like just a knowing, right? It's just and that's when you know that full body, just comfortable, you're not trying. It's just a feel of like, yeah, I have brown hair. I'm born with hazel eyes, sure.
Exactly. But you tell me, you were going to say there's something about moving that change and how I move that energy in my body.
No, I just had a similar experience. I just wanted to, say yes because I did some energy healing just the same time period, 2019, 2020, all of, lots and lots of things that I focused on. And one of the things I was doing Pilates at the time, and then I did some deep energy healing. And one day I could just touch my toe on my right leg that I'd never for years and years and years, but then all of a sudden overnight, and I knew It was
Yeah.
because I released that energy and healed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of amazing when you have these experiences, right? Because it kind of allows you to remember none of this is is unmovable, right? It's all energy at the end of the day, and how
Absolutely. Yes. And it's formed by our mind and our wounds and our traumas and our thoughts and our beliefs and just healing and moving and like, wow. So, I mean, I'm enjoying this conversation. So tell me more.
well, after that experience, I had gone back to college because I had taken some time off. I took a semester off and I went back to college. And in that time was my real transitional period of who I was. It was a transition of my identity because I would go to acting classes and I'd come back and I'd meditate. I'd FaceTime my mom and we'd start channeling. And at this point, it was just kind of like practicing that muscle and getting used to that energy. And I remember by the end of, I guess I went back to school in January, but by the end of that semester, which was early June, I decided I wasn't this college, experience is not for me. And I was feeling it was almost like it wasn't a vibrational match anymore, quite honestly.
And what does that feel like for people that are maybe struggling and someone says, I quit the job, but I didn't leave the job. I mean, those are probably some things, but how did it feel to you that you just knew you weren't vibrationally matching with this life in school?
I think for me, it felt so dissonant. It felt like wading through mud,
Mm.
you know? And I'm not saying this is correct for everyone, right? You have to look at what else is going on in your life, if this is feasible for you. Some things are just a perception shift, right? Some things are limiting beliefs, right? And we're self-sabotaging. But I think there is a difference between self-sabotage, which includes fear and unworthiness and undeservingness, versus I really can't do this anymore. It's almost like it feels easier to let go of because it feels like and there's also a respect and a sacredness when you're letting go of that thing. I appreciate so much that, my college experience, those first 1.5 years, gave me so much. It gave me what I needed. I met some amazing people. I had an amazing experience in who I was then, and it helped me to become who I am becoming.
No, for
And
sure. There's a saying that we have. I mean, this is even with relationships or anything. It's like it doesn't have to be permanent to be successful and important to know when to let go, right?
yes, yes, and I think you can say that for so many things. You can say that about jobs, about marriages, relationships, right? There's so many areas that that can be applied to, but it is about finding what what is that feeling for you, right? Is it a real wading through mud, or is it fear and undeservingness and some limitations in your mind that
Yeah, no, you just don't want the challenge. And sometimes it's like, I just don't want the challenge. It's not that I didn't want what's happening. So they kind of walk away. No, that's important point too. We're not just running away from stuff. You're recognizing that it's a pivotal moment in your life and it's time to move to a different vibrational pattern or path. And so what happened? And then what was next?
so after that, I had gone back home. I was living with my parents in New York and I was meditating like crazy. And I
Oh,
had,
let me ask real quick, Layla, when you meditate, what do you do? What's your practice?
what was funny about this is when I took time off from school, my mom was like, maybe you should meditate again. I mean, just to put it into perspective, the reason why I also took time off from school, like I said, that dark night of the soul experience that I was in, I mean, it felt like everything in my life was crumbling. My dad was having really bad health issues. It was triggering health issues that I had from 4 years ago, not getting help in the Western medical system. I hadn't healed that. And it was causing such a deep sense of anxiety and depression in me that I had never felt to that extreme. So
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask, when did the fear come in? Yeah.
it was a real mental health crisis that I was in. I mean, I was so anxious.
How old were you?
I was 19 at the time,
Yeah.
19, and then 20, and then that's when I
That's when I went through all my anxiety and panic attacks and stuff too.
And so really, after that time, I was home. And my mom, again, pioneer woman, she was, trying to find ways because my dad was recovering from some really bad heart related issues. My sister was told that she would have to get a hysterectomy. She had really bad endometriosis and that she'd have to get a hysterectomy at 23.
Yikes. Yeah.
And because her menstrual cycles were really painful. And me as well. I mean, I was depressed, I was anxious, I didn't know what was going on. And my mom was just on a mission to try to save everyone around her and to make her family thrive again. And so we did everything from, reading books on meditation, listening to Abraham Hicks, going to like body code and emotion code and hypnotherapy or it was like quantum hypnosis.
Dolores Cannon, maybe.
It was Dolores Cannon, yes, but it was like HQTT or something.
She does, yeah.
Yes, yes. And all of these things. And it was really an amazing transformative time because then what started to happen was automatically, I felt like overnight I had an anxiety attack one day and overnight, no more anxiety.
Wow, that's awesome. I love to hear that. I mean, similar to me, I thought I'd have to manage anxiety forever. I thought it was just part of my life, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
And not that I don't experience regular emotional fear as a normal thing, but
course.
not the anxiety and the triggered stuff. Yeah. Wow. I love this.
Yeah. And so when
I love, wait, let's just, because that is hope for people that just live with anxiety and think that this is who I am, and they label it, and my anxiety is coming back, and I have anxiety. And you can absolutely live without it.
You can. And more than anything, if I could go back in time and tell my younger self something related to what I was experiencing, would be that I would label myself as being an anxious person. I would label myself all of these things.
Identity, yeah.
Realize how harmful that was because I was making it my identity. Yeah. And so what I would say to someone that, is struggling with anxiety or depression, try to really be picky about the languaging you're using when you're saying these feelings are coming on. And it's not to dismiss, I understand mental health is a serious thing.
No, but you're just saying, words cast spells, and our minds only listen to what we tell it and the pictures we create in our head, and we do create our reality of those types of things. And so a lot of it is undoing.
Yeah. And it's a simple change. So much as saying, instead of saying like, I have anxiety, you can say, oh, anxious feelings are arising.
Right.
Simple shift in languaging. And it makes all the difference, like you said.
No, and I know it sounds so simple, but it works.
Yeah. So after that experience, I met someone who kind of helped me to practice these channeling abilities that I had. And of course, with my channeling, what started happening was it wasn't just that I was working with the Andromedan collective of beings. I started working with another group of beings called.
Well, tell us who the Andromedan beings are, first of all, for those who don't know.
So with me, and if you ask any channel, who channels multiple beings or collects forms of collective consciousness, they'll have their own take. And so what I say is the beings that we connect with, whether in conscious channeled form or in dream state, or we just kind of feel like a resonance to a specific, galactic race or something like that. It's not necessarily that this is what it means, this is what Andromedans are, and this is what they do, and this is what they mean, because that's going to be a unique experience to me. And so for me, what the Andromedans represented and what I see personally as their role in our universe is they are the gatekeepers of portals. So they are here to I kind of relate them to like bouncers at a night.
But wait, that's cute. Okay, go on. And then describe portal, like someone flying through, and where are they going to? Another time, space, dimension, territory?
Well, portal in simple terms is just access to information. It's an exchange of information. And how information is exchanged is through a container of space that sends information from here to here. So I'm talking as Layla right now, using this portal as a computer, using the mechanism that we're doing to get that information to you. So portal in simple terms is, it's just a container of how information gets through to and from one space. And so Andromedans, when we're talking about portals, we're talking about moving something to and from space, from one place to another. And so Andromedans, they are the gatekeepers of these portals. And portals could be translating information from Andromeda to a human on Earth, right? That's a different dimensional experience. That's a different access to information. The Andromedans, when I communicate with them, I often communicate. There's different dimensions or dimensions. I just call them as access to information, right? When we're saying humans are here on Earth in our third dimension, what it means is not that we're not wise or that we don't have access. It means the speed of which information is coming through is a slower speed. So we are able to see, this is a table, because the table is moving at a slow speed that it feels physical. So when we're opening up dimension, when we're going higher in dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension, we're opening up that access through which the speed and the frequency of that information is quicker in nature. So it's not as physical. So the Andromedans, when I channel and when I speak to them, they're speaking at a higher dimension, probably eighth, ninth dimension. And when I communicate with them, I see not even beings so much as I see a kind of like a vortex of light that just keeps spinning.
And this is during your meditation, right? So, and you're just open to allowing all of this to just come in and trusting that you're not making it up.
Yes, yes. And more than anything, I think what it was for me, talk about trust, is the words that were coming out of my mouth were,
Yeah, what words you would ever use, exactly.
I didn't research it. I didn't, I couldn't make it up. And also, I would say when we're talking about trusting our gifts as well, one thing that I learned is, how do you feel after or during the process of whatever your gift is, whether that's painting or writing or channeling or dancing, or hypnosis, whatever it is.
Goodness.
How do you feel during and after? And that feeling should be the basis of your discernment. And the discernment being, okay, can I trust myself enough to say this is real and the experiences that I'm having are real?
Well, they are real. I mean, and like the business alchemist, someone that I had also interviewed said, when people think they're making it up, but you're making it up from where? Well, where are you making it up from?
Yeah, I love that. So good.
No. So I have a question for you. So you talked about being able to see auras. Let's talk about that. Can you just, what if you were like in the grocery store? Do you just normally look at people and see the aura around them, or is it something that you have to drop into sort of a field and see, or how does that work?
It's funny because I had the same feeling when I first started channeling, where we don't get to choose our gifts. Because when I first started channeling, like at first, when I was in that channeled state, which is kind of a trance state for me, I go so deep inside of myself that I kind of feel like I'm this ball of consciousness. And I'm just ping ponging wherever in the world I am to different dimensions or different beings that, can help with a response to whatever question someone has. And so I remember in that state being like, oh, I wish I could see auras again, because this ability came online, but my ability when I was younger didn't come online as quickly. And so I immediately was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I just want to see auras again. Like, that was fun and that was light. And, I could do it.
You felt like there was a responsibility with this new gift that you maybe kind of rejecting?
Yes, for sure. For sure. And it is a great responsibility, because I think while it's amazing, we are in this age of awakening, and this age of awakening really is talking about us awakening to who we really are. And when we awaken to who we really are, all of these latent abilities start to come online.
Yeah.
And, latent abilities, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the same experience as me. I mean, it could mean that suddenly you get led to a different path and you decide to resign from your corporate job and you go into this new path of studying and learning. I mean, that's another form of this awakening that happens. But I think what happens and what I started to see very quickly is, and what I continue to see, are there so many people that learn something like in 2 minutes and they just decide to say, oh, now I offer this thing and I do this
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. I know what you're
And I think like, and I think those people are going with so much passion and eagerness to help, but I think, there needs to be real discernment. And this is what we see happening all over the world. And this is how things like plant medicine get abused, because there's this desire for chasing novelty and new experience and that initial rush of awakening, versus awakening is actually a real process.
It's a lifetime of a process.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And so that was really the responsibility that I felt when this happened to me, is like, wow, like as much as I felt supported and held energetically and I was trusting myself, there was a real like, okay, these aren't just gifts of like, hey, I can do this thing, like look at
Yeah.
me.
I read a book and now I can tell everybody else how to do it.
Exactly. And oftentimes when I told people what I did, they didn't even believe me because I didn't even dress the part. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't wearing this like cape and these feathered hats.
Angel wings.
Exactly, exactly. Which is, so much of what we see now, I think, is, dressing spiritual versus living the lifestyle. And the reality is, we are all spirit in a body. So we
Yeah.
can never not be spiritual,
No, but you're so right, Layla, and it's all personal. It's personal to every single person. It's how it shows up for you. And if you do want to wear those clothes, that's great too. But
Yes.
I understand what you're saying is that trust in yourself, trust in, and just sort of trust in who you're getting your advice from.
Yeah. And more importantly, I think people see gifts that other people have and they go, "Oh wow, that's amazing. Like I want that." And when people ask me, what really led me to getting to this place is I was so far off my true resonance of authenticity. And I think really when we're talking about unlocking one's potential, unlocking one's gift, we are talking about being authentic.
No,
And
breed.
and
A
that's really
therapist friend of mine said that the only way to find yourself is to lose yourself.
hmm hmm
And so once you lose yourself, then you realize, wait, this doesn't feel right at all. And that's when you can really understand where the authenticity comes in and it feels good and right, just like you said earlier. Just it's a knowing, it's a yes, of course, duh, of
hmm
course.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. So, okay, so about the light language, tell me a little bit about your services. When someone comes to you, you do this Vedic
Vedic
like
astrology.
Vedic astrology. What is that?
So, Vedic astrology is also known as Jyotish, and it's one of the most ancient, or I should say, the most ancient form of astrology in India. And so, how Vedic astrology is different than traditional Western astrology, right? And when I say Western astrology, it's Western astrology mainly looks at, the sun sign, sometimes looks at the rising. And when I say the sun sign, what I'm talking about is like if you're born, in like middle, late November, you'll be a Sagittarius, right? Things like that. And Western astrology looks at the tropical zodiac. So it's the precession of the tropical zodiac versus Vedic astrology, which looks at the sidereal system. And so it looks at the actual constellations that are in the sky. So it performs its basis of calculation based off of the night sky and what we're actually seeing. And so in Vedic astrology, what you'll see is it's, and I still love both systems. I started studying Western first, and then for 4 years, and then I moved on to Vedic. But I still see, there's use for both of those systems. I might say that Western astrology is kind of the timeline of your human avatar.
So if someone comes to you, could do when you channel light language, is that a part of a service that you do? And how does that work?
So, this whole conversation's been about my channeling journey and
Yeah.
and I love talking about it because it was my starting point and it was my main method of service for years. And I moved to Mexico about 4 years ago, and oftentimes what I see, and actually I think we all operate in this way if we're open to changes, is God, the universe source, will use us and use our gifts and abilities and change them if they need to be changed to meet the needs that are currently happening in the world around us.
Oh, wow. I never heard anyone say it that way, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah. And so, do I still channel? Yes. Do I do one on one channelings or channeled events or channeled webinars? No. And the reason for that, I believe, is because when I came to Mexico, I live in a place called Playa del Carmen, but 45 minutes south, you have this area called Tulum. And lots of people may have heard of Tulum. It became really, a really overrun place during COVID because Mexico is the only place that was open. But it is very sacred land. And what started happening is people would go there and they would have binges sometimes of using plant medicine and doing kind of, ceremonies or, doing really deep, sacred, profound experiences, but not with enough integration. And so, that's like in my backyard. And the people that I would meet and the experiences that I would have while I still do a majority of my stuff online, because I was here in this place, my methodology started changing. And so I started really focusing on what does integration look like? You have these novel experiences, or maybe you have your first, transformative experience with plant medicine. How do we integrate that experience? What does integration even look like? And so for me, that really became the change in my offering. And so I really started offering more practical tools of how do we embed, right, this spiritual information into the practical reality. And also the other change I started to notice is people would come to me for a channeling session and they would just want to know, should they take this path or this path? And the thing is when we're talking with beings of a higher light, they really honor our free will. And they would never, ever, beings of true light would never, ever infringe on that free will. They would never say, this is the right path, this is the wrong path. They would give us the context of what we're in, but they would never tell us yes or no.
And then you decide.
And I was realizing this was a way for people to be disempowered. And I knew going back to that responsibility that I knew that I had, I never wanted people to simply come to me because they wanted an answer or that they were living out of this disempowered vibration. And because that's another way that we abuse, spiritual abilities
Wow.
is by not using it in a proper right context. And most of all, when we're talking about spirituality, it is about coming back to ourselves, which means coming back to the self empowered, self responsible version of us. And so when we engage, we should only be engaging in that space when we're working with these really profound teachings and medicines and
No, I had an energy teacher that she would phrase it like, it's like giving the kid the keys to a Ferrari that they're not ready to drive.
yeah, yeah, it is a fit like that. And
Aimless.
yeah, and so that's why for me it became more about practical. Okay, we're working with the subconscious. That's where 95% of our beliefs and our perceptions live. How can I help someone in this 1 hour, 15 minutes that I have with them change some of really, faulty programs that are holding them back. That's a practical thing.
No, no. So yeah, one of your practices, subconscious reprogramming, which, I know a lot about hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
And then you said you were focused a lot on the vocal. Was that still the light language part or the light activation or the vocal activation?
So again, what I started to see was, okay, how can I practically help people? Yes, in one-on-one settings. So that's more of the subconscious. That's more Vedic astrology as well, because in Vedic, again, how it's slightly different than Western is we can kind of get pretty accurate predictions based off of certain things that are happening in your life. And also, if you have challenging aspects in your chart, which may be actually putting a challenge to your relationship sector of your life or your career, we can do something called remedies. And these remedies actually help to cancel out that negative impact. So there's still something of, it's benefic, right? It's helpful, it's practical that you can use to help, understand the context of the energies that you're in your life and make practical steps to change some of those things that are a little bit challenging. And the vocal activations come out of my love for music. And so when I was channeling years ago, when that first started, I not only was channeling messages in English, but I also started channeling something called light language. And light language to me is kind of a series of harmonics that I receive in this trance state. And these harmonics can be used and are helpful to listen to for different purposes. So on my website, I have, harmonics for calm and sleep. I have one for enhancing your intuition. And so the idea is because our body's primarily made up of water, when we listen to these harmonics, which we already know from, the emerging science of sound, which is called cymatics, you put sand on a moving plate and you say om, it creates this sacred geometry. So same thing happens here when we're listening to high vibrational music, light language, binaural beats, whatever it is, we're imprinting our water with higher, more integrated potentials. And so for me, that's the light language that I offer. So those are things that you can buy.
No, I love that. I listened to some of the music that you sent me, and it was just beautiful. And when you said beautiful, it was like you could feel it. You could feel that vibration when I was listening to the voice and the music that you were creating. I mean, it was, and the science is out there on those hertz. I mean, that, this is not just a woo-woo thing. The science is there that it really changes your nervous system. It reduces stress and it really activates a higher frequency where you can heal all kinds of things in your body. Hence the lag that you could pull over your head after the session.
Exactly. It's true. It's so true. And that's another thing for your listeners that don't know. Um the album that I sent you is my album that just came out last December. And it's an album that I made with Sebastian Millard. He's an amazing composer and musician. And for me, the intention with working on this album was how can we blend music that you'd listen to every day, but not even knowing that you're getting these positive frequencies or these positive lyrics even into your subconscious, right? And as we know, the subconscious is, formed on repetition.
Yep.
And so what better way to transform yourself than using a fun thing like music? You can just listen to it every day.
It's like guided meditation with music behind it. And so, Layla, thank you so much for this podcast. It's been such a delight talking and listening. I could talk to you for hours. Can you tell the listeners where we could find you and what's the name of your album and anything like that?
Sure. So you can find me on my website. My website is lightwithlayla.com.
Layla spelled Layla. Yep.
Layla, yes. You can find me on Instagram at Light with Layla as well. And my album is called Aya Volume 1. So it's AIA and then VOL 1. And that's on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, all streaming platforms.
Anyone listening, buy that, get that, listen to it during, just not while you're operating heavy machinery, right?
For the album you can.
Oh, okay.
I just wouldn't recommend listening maybe to the last song, which is called Aya, which is just pure light language.
Wow. Interesting. Love it. Light language. Light with Layla.
Yes, yes.
Layla, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for meeting with us and coming onto a channel, tapping into the wisdom of your soul. We'll put all your information at the bottom. And if you guys like this, please subscribe, send it to other people. And thank you, Layla. It was great having you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.